Hi, Sean here, the teen librarian at the Palm Springs Public Library, and this is our instructional video for our November craft for teens, which is the fall leaf art inspirational / uninspired quotes. Yeah. In your kit, you'll find a canvas, this leaf cutout, some fall color paints, a paintbrush, but I also recommend that you provide yourself with masking tape to hold the cutout down, and you're going to need a marker, just a regular fine tip Sharpie will do. And I've got everything. Let's get started. Couple tips just before we get started. One, you probably want to change it to something that can get paint on it. These paints are, I believe you can wash them out if the paint is still wet, but I make no guarantees about that. So I've changed into a different shirt. I recommend you doing the same, just something you can get paint on. Two, this brush will hold a lot of paint. I think a lot of brushes tend to do that, and it's one of the things that I need to remind myself of. So when you're working with the paint, you're gonna use, if you use a paper plate, which you should be, you're gonna use the paper plate to dab a lot of the paint out of the brush so it's not too thick when you put it on here, because that's really one of the biggest points, is not wanting to use too much paint, especially when you're dealing with the edge, because the more paint you use, the more likely it's going to get underneath that edge and blur the line of what you're trying to create. Third, I'd recommend having not only your quote that you're going to put on the inside of the white space that you create, but also you may want to map it out. You may even want to pencil it out, so you know exactly, the spacing of it, what it's going to look like, how long the sentence, one line needs to be, that kind of thing. So for example, the one I'm doing is autumn shows us how beautiful it is to let things go. And that's an anonymous quote, and I'll probably just leave it anonymous and put it on this one. And I kind of have an idea of where I'm going to put it. I don't think I'll pencil it out, but again, it's an option that you may want to consider, just depending on how you feel about it. One of the things, I've already cut this out, so one thing is just keep in mind, when you're cutting it out, I would try to be as liberal with how do I say this? Being away from the black edge as much as you want. I mean, you don't want to go too far, because this is measured to fit on this canvas, but it doesn't need to be on the black line or anything like that, because think of it almost like, it's almost like a, well, the space we're trying to create needs as much room to breathe as possible. Another thing is, I'd strongly recommend using masking tape to put on the back, so that it stays as close to the canvas as possible while you're painting. So I'm going to go ahead and put these little pre-rolled masking tape up. You don't want it to be too thick, because that can just lend to it lifting a lot. I definitely want to put a little bit here on the stem. I think I'll skip that one, and I'll go ahead and place this so it's not too close to the edge. And maybe angle it, or do what you want to do. Center it, don't center it, do what you want to do. There we go. Go ahead and press down firmly. I strongly recommend using the masking tape. It just keeps everything together, and in one place. You don't have to worry about pushing down on this when you go. Another thing is, you can mix your paints first, but I honestly have tried this a couple different ways, and I think the best technique is just to start with colors and let them mix themselves here on the canvas. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to paint around the edges, and I'm going to be as light as possible with the paint at this step. You can go a little bit thicker once you start painting the rest of the canvas if you decide to do that. But this first part, that edge, you want to be as light as possible, just to help kind of create that sharp edge is what we're looking for. The sharper the edge, the more defined it looks as a leaf. So I'm going to go ahead and start. Also, one of the techniques that I've kind of picked up is just painting for the edge alone. Just paint fast. You can, after you establish the edge, After you establish the edge, then you can really work on the kind of textures and details that you want. So if this looks too rushed, I get that, but we want to establish that edge as best as we can. And I think this is the best method I have for it. I'm in dire need of some red here. All right, next thing I'm going to recommend is as soon as you're done painting the edge, is just to pull the cardstock off as soon as possible. You want to be careful not to smear the paint. You can of course rip this. There we go. Boom! Look at that leaf. All right, excellent. So pulling this off sooner than later will help kind of just so it doesn't soak or get caught on the edge and bleed through. I just recommend pulling it off sooner than later just to play it safe. We've got our leaf pattern basically established. So now you need to make the decision. Do you want to paint the entire canvas, or do you want to leave it the way that it is? What do you want to do? I'm going to paint the entire canvas and get some nice texture in there. I really do like the pattern or the texture that I have, so I may not mess with it too much. But I'm going to just go ahead and continue with some of the colors that I have here. Of course, being careful not to mess up the leaf that we have. Oh, that's really red. You also probably have a lot of excess paint already on the canvas, so if you want to work with that first, you can. It depends on how thick you want the texture to be. All right. All right, now that that's complete, I'm going to go ahead and write my quote on here. Now, the couple things, again, I always say this, do it any way you want. But for me, this, although the leaf is somewhat tilted, I don't want to tilt the quote because I want it to be readable if this was hanging, for example, or propped up somewhere. So I'm going to kind of center it somewhere between here and here. And I'm going to start. I've got autumn shows us how beautiful it is to let things go. So I'm going to do that in 3 lines. And I'm not going to pencil it in. I'm going to go for it. And we'll see how I do. There we go. There's my inspirational quote. Autumn shows us how beautiful it is to let things go. And with our beautiful leaf art here. All right, there's our finished product, our beautiful fall leaf art, inspirational / uninspired quote. I'm really happy with how this turned out. I hope you are happy with how yours turned out, and take care.